What's up, everybody, and welcome to The Block presented by Around the Block Sports Network. And we're going to have a good one for you guys today, short and sweet. But we're going to start off with hockey. Sam, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I came into this week, trying to think of something creative to do for hockey because it was such a down week. Then Friday night comes and the league turns upside down. So we'll have to say that's another week, but we have a lot to discuss right now.
We do, and let's get right into it right away. We had a draft not too long ago. Man, dude, there were some upsets here or just some more surprising moves. Obviously, Shane Wright being the number one overall prospect drops 4 spots and is selected by the Seattle group, the new expansion team. Pretty good player for them. But you look at the players taken above. What are your overall thoughts on it so far?
I mean, it's not unheard of for the guy coming into the draft to not go first, the number one guy. We saw it with Nico Hischier. He went first over, I believe it was Nolan Patrick, who was the number one prospect that year. But he fell to second. I mean, for Shane Wright to fall to fourth to Seattle, that was the most shocking to me, right? If Montreal wanted Slafkovsky first, that's totally fine. Like, I get it. That was a prospect. But for New Jersey and Arizona both to pass on what was the number one guy coming in, that was shocking. And I'm really happy for Seattle. They have a real cornerstone here to start off.
Yeah, obviously we've had our chats before about Shane Wright and what type of player he is and can be in this league. I mean, we did a whole episode on how he was going to fit in Montreal, and I'm pretty sure all the Canadian fans there at the draft were probably thinking he's not leaving this arena after tonight. But unfortunately, he wasn't selected number one overall. Like you said, Seattle gets a really good player at 4. But I would say just throughout the first 10 picks of this draft there were some head scratchers and some potential thoughts of some players dropping in this draft. And, one I'm going to mention off the bat is I think the Philadelphia Flyers got a steal at number 5 and getting Cutter Garther, the left winger. Big size guy, probably the biggest guy in the draft besides the number one spot. I think he's a great pick for Philly because he fits Philly's motto. He fits the characteristic of being the big broad bullies from Philadelphia. And I think now having a coach in John Tortorella, if you've got the size and somewhat of a skill aspect to your game, it's going to benefit you in any way, especially with John Tortorella coach team.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to see Philadelphia have a direction here. For the last few years, they were sort of in the middle, which we never like. At number 5, it's a nice pick. He's not NHL ready right now, and that's fine. I just hope you hope as a Flyers fan they can keep that same energy and that same goal, which is being a tough physical team that's tough to play against. And you know, in the past, I think in the modern NHL, it's not it's not ideally what you want, but maybe they want to zag. They want to be a team that's really different from the other teams.
When you
This
look at what they've done over their years in the draft, especially the past 5 to 10 years, it seems like they've been trying to get the skill guys. Obviously, we talked about Nolan Patrick a little bit and his potential in the NHL and how he's panned out. It seems to me that this was a no-brainer, especially to get a left wing and a guy who's just going to be able to put down size. Yes, he's not ready to go and play right away, but that's how it is after usually the first 4 picks of these drafts. Some of these guys are just not that ready or not capable of stepping into an NHL locker room with NHL speed. I think this guy is going to have a tremendous time in development. And especially for where the Flyers are right now, it looks like they're in that rebuild process. So if this is your first pick in that new process, in this new coaching staff, and this new direction going forward, I think it fits them perfectly and could be a potential really nice asset down the road.
Yeah, definitely. I see what you're saying. He's definitely a skilled player and he fits that mold. I do see where they're coming from. I just would worry if, you know, this this plan that they have going forward. I'm worried that they won't stick to it. They may abandon a bit too quickly. Maybe Tortorella leaves after a year. Maybe it doesn't work out, and they're too quick to abandon it. Because I'd love to see it through. I love having these unique teams, these teams that go against the grain, and this fits that right now. So hopefully they stick with it.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, what about you? Do you have any losers of the draft? Do you have any major winners that maybe got a couple picks later in the round?
One pick that's really interesting to me is Arizona picking Logan Cooley here at 3. For me, this is such an interesting choice. I love that they have the conviction to go with their guy here, right? Shane Wright would have been the obvious pick, and they went with their guy at 3 here, Logan Cooley. I think they were targeting him all along, probably considering they probably thought, Shane Wright would go 1 or 2. So I don't think they were expecting to have an option of Shane Wright, and they like their guy. I think that's really interesting, and I wonder if he's the guy to finally bring Arizona out from this 10-year dumpster fire they've been. I wonder if he's the guy. I think they think he's the guy, but does he have it in him to not necessarily lift the franchise up by himself? That would be impossible. But at least be a foundation of something they can
Yeah.
build with people who want to be in Arizona.
Well, it's really interesting because obviously throughout the entire path to the draft itself, a lot of people started to talk about Shane Wright and his attitude, right? That
Mm-hmm.
was the one thing coming up in the news 24/7 is this guy may be a little bit cocky. All the other guys were like, okay, I don't have that weight to bury of being the number one prospect going into this draft. None of these guys probably, I mean, all in their head, they're probably thinking I'm worthy of enough being the first overall pick. They probably didn't really think that that would likely happen because of a guy like Shane Wright. That being said, I think the organizations look at these characteristic guys more than the actual skill and be like, okay, I like this Cooley guy. I think he's a little bit more calm, cool, and collective than this hothead Shane Wright, at least through the media. And Arizona is not even that big of a media place. So it
Definitely
seemed
not.
like kind of, it was a little odd to see Cooley get selected. But I think at the end of the day, they just really like their more chilled back, relaxed player and a guy who's just going to go grind his nose rather than talk to the cameras. So I do think it's a great pick for them. Really, this draft can go anyway. There's so many guys taken within the top 15, 25 that can really make a difference for their organizations going forward. So we'll have to see it unravel as the upcoming years become upon us and stuff and see when they get their time in the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, I hope this is a new leaf for Arizona hockey. I really do hope that they put something
Hey
together that.
man, I'm already planning a trip to go to that small arena. I gotta
Oh
see it. I
man,
gotta see a
they
5,000
get a
man
playoff game
NHL
in
game.
there.
Uh, Give you
That would.
kind of vibes of college or high school again, you know?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Love it. All right, well, let's move on. We got some other big news here. Your team, your Florida Panthers were busy, dude. Busy last week getting Matthew Tkachuk from the Calgary Flames. And, they gave up a lot of assets for this guy. But also, you got to remember the guys going over to Calgary, like Jonathan Huberdeau, they're all running out on their contracts. So it's really a toss up in the air to see if they will re sign with Calgary. But you being the Florida Panthers fan, what do you think of this move? We got a little technical difficulties here, I think. We lost someone. We're going to try and reboot this right here. I'm gonna add him back in. I think we lost him. You're
Yep.
back.
Sorry about that. My
You're back.
internet started on me.
It's
Had to
all
switch
good,
it.
man. All good. I don't know what you heard, but I'll just do a quick little recap. Matthew Tkachuk, obviously, to the Panthers, gave up a lot of assets. Some of those guys are running out on their contracts, so kind of a questionable move for Calgary. What are your thoughts, being the Florida Panthers insider guy that you are?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about my thoughts today for on the block. Check that out if you want to. The big thing for me is just how crazy this is for the Panthers to try and pull off. I mean, they were the President's Trophy winners, right? And for them to just so drastically change their team from a year ago, it shows a lot of conviction, I'll say. But I think it's so risky. And I love Matthew Tkachuk. I think he's the best player in this trade. But it was such a risky move to really just change your identity on the fly like this with a team that was so effective.
Well, for me, like we've discussed in the past too, we talked about the coaching change and how we didn't think that was necessary,
Hmm.
especially for a team that's starting to gain life and an identity of being a threat in the NHL each and every season. And you don't want to walk away from that. You don't want to walk away from that type of culture. And then you have an older guy in Jonathan Huberdeau. I mean, not too old, but still, the guy puts up, I believe, 115 points, 114 points, something like that this year. And Kachuk, I believe, had a little bit less, still an outstanding season. But it's not just a one for one. There's
Right.
picks involved. There's more position men, especially that wonderful defenseman that you guys let go as well,
Mackenzie
who I
Weegar, I
think is an
mean,
asset. Um,
absolutely great defenseman, Mackenzie Weegar.
exactly. So it's a little bit of a mind scratcher from that aspect. But at the same time, why would Calgary make this trade? Because unless you resign these guys, is it worth it? You're just letting him walk essentially then. Um, I will say I'm not a huge fan of Florida losing their core group and a leader like Jonathan Huberdeau. There is upside to bringing in a guy like Matthew Kachuk because he's young, flashy. He's got everything um, going well for him in his game: defense, power play, defense. Whether it's the
Mhm.
PK, he's also that instigator that everybody wants on their team.
Mhm.
He'll be loud enough to the point where he's, making a toss in there with his gloves. He'll shake him off a little bit, but he's just an all around great player. I don't know how much of a leader he is though yet, and that's just me giving praise to a guy who's been in the league like Jonathan Huberdeau and who has seen the downfall and the lows of his career being with a Florida Panthers team early on that wasn't as flashy, and he's worked his way up to get this team to where it is, and then all of a sudden he's just traded and forgotten. So to
Absolutely.
me, it's a head scratcher both ways. It could work out for both teams, in my opinion, though. I really do think Florida got the best end of it because it's so uncertain if Calgary gets those guys back re-signed after this upcoming season.
Yeah, that's the thing about this trade, right? It could go great for both teams and it could go disastrously for both teams. Specifically, Calgary, I think, has the worst possible end of this because if they lose out on Huberto and lose Weegar, both upcoming free agents, if they both walk, what are you left with? A decent prospect in Cole Schwint and a lottery
Yeah,
protected first. That is terrible return for Kachuk. It just seems like this trade bought them a year at most, right? They had
yeah.
to they just pushed the can down the road a year. Now they have to make these tough decisions with these guys next off season, right? This season they'll probably still be a good team. Huberto and Uyghur fill in those roles nicely. They'll fill in some pieces they lost, but then you're just going to run into the same problem. A guy who is known to want to go back to Montreal, and a Uyghur who has no ties really to Calgary, and now who thinks they're going to stay? I don't think anyone is certain they're going to stay. They might, but you're going to have to
Unless they
overpay
make a
them.
run, unless they make a further run than last year.
They're going
I
to have to
mean,
make a run, and they're
let's
going to
be
have to get
real.
paid.
Huberdeau, McKenzie, they could just turn around after this year and go right back to Florida if they want to. I mean,
Kind
that's a
of,
huge possibility, and that
yeah.
would really sting Calgary in the face. My question is, all right, so we've also talked about this enough. We've talked about how Kachuk brings that physical, nasty impact to Florida,
Hmm.
but does Calgary need a nurturing, old-fashioned leader like a Huberdeau, like a McKenzie up in Calgary? How much did they need that over letting go of a nasty guy that everybody would like on their team in Matthew Kachuk?
Absolutely right. I mean, it looks like it brought them some hope, at least in the short term, because it looked really bad for Calgary right there. But really, it's it's not filling a need in the human sense that they need. And I think the same could be said for Florida in this case, right? Because from a business perspective for Florida, this trade makes total sense, right? It clears up their cap. They're going to have a lot of room to play with, and they're getting a star, a marketable young star who's only getting better. But the human element of this, you're breaking up a team that was close, that had such a bond, and that was really good together. I don't think that sends the right message for this group because if you're one of the best players on the team, you could still get traded. You have no security with this team. It's kind of worrisome, but who knows? It might work out for both teams also.
Yeah, it very well could. And it's kind of it's a toss up right now until we see them on the ice and get going out in when October hits here. So it's gonna be a head scratcher now. But let's kind of go back a little bit here and talk about the piece that really got this thing going in the sense of the Calgary Flames losing Johnny Goodrow. This was also just a shocker. Everybody
Shock.
was wondering where he was going to end up, and really nobody thought Columbus was going to be a front runner. I thought he was going to head back over to New Jersey, closer to family. Just right off the bat, he said he was going to take less money if needed to, just to get out of there. So it kind of got you scratching your head a little bit, thinking about what is wrong with Calgary. And then obviously after that, Kachuk then told the organization, I don't want to come back. So something major happened there. Either
Yeah.
way, Johnny Goudreau is now with Columbus. The man got paid too. I mean, for at least he could have gotten paid more, but he got his respected dues. But also, which is very interesting, a couple days after, they were able to re-sign Patrick Laine on a decent 4-year deal to keep that common core, at least those two together, because everybody was uncertain on Laine's future in Columbus, especially after Goudreau signed.
Yeah, it's interesting, I mean, this is probably, I think, the first time in the history of Columbus or Ohio that someone took less money to play there. I mean, this came as a
The
shock.
only thing I can think about is like even LeBron James going back to Cleveland. But besides
LeBron
that,
got his money though.
yeah, I don't think anybody's ever been like, let's go back to Cleveland. Let's go back to Ohio.
That's what I'm honestly pretty amazed by this for Columbus. I mean, it's just interesting because it doesn't fit their timeline. They're still a bit away from competing, I think. And they have prospects. They have young prospects. They're in the right direction. But like this is so different from what I thought they would be doing. It puts them in a weird spot. I just think they had this opportunity they couldn't pass up. I mean, this is a bona fide star coming off a 100-point season. You can get him under $10 million on the open markets. It just seems too good for Columbus. Honestly, I would have done the same. I mean, so for them, now you have to figure how do you build around Johnny Gaudreau effectively, right?
Well, you know already that Line A is going to be a side of him, not centering, obviously, but he'll be right there on that first line. So there you go. They've got the established superstar line that almost every super team has to start off with. But then you look at after that, you got Kent Johnson, Boone Jenner, and Gustav Nyquist probably as your number 2 lineup right there, which
Not
it's
bad.
not terrible, but it's like you said, why are we pushing this hard for these types of players when we don't have the established players in our bottom 6 to bottom 9 to go forward and actually go for a championship? I mean, you've got some old guys there too. I think Jacob Voracek's still there, really older NHL player, good for the younger guys. But as of right now, you just added not too young guy in Johnny Gaudreau. So kind of a really just it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder if there's going to be more moves to this Columbus Blue Jackets team. Obviously, they've got a decent goaltender, Elvis, as we know. He makes he's had a couple. He had a good year a while back, but other than that, it doesn't seem like they have the flashy defensive core too to handle all these other awesome teams in the NHL and get past. So who knows? Maybe there will be some more moves for the Columbus down the road to really make them a contender or at least win a playoff series. But it seems like Johnny Gaudreau is back to square one, and at least in the Stanley Cup playoffs, which is let's just get by round 1.
Yeah, and I mean they had to give up a really nice player in Oliver Bjorkstrand essentially for free, a 3rd and 4th round pick to Seattle, giving away top 6 forwards there, and that's just a casualty of Gaudreau, I guess. But it still makes you wonder. I mean, how far away are they from competing? So, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I feel like they're going to start becoming buyers for sure on pretty much everything. I don't think you go out and you get Johnny Gaudreau and you also re-sign Patrick Laine for 4 years.
Eric
I don't think you do
a 4x4 from them.
Was that
Eric Goodbranson got a 4x4 from them.
Yeah. So
hefty contract.
It's making you wonder. It seems like this is it, the 4-year span. I think they're going to become huge buyers, whether it's trade deadline down the road, still in free agency. I think they're going to try to just buy as much as they can because I don't really think they have the assets to trade for other players either. I don't think they have the draft capital to do this. So, they're in a really weird scenario than what they were 2 weeks ago. So, I know, say goodbye to the draft capital, say goodbye to whatever the future may be, because the future is now apparently in Columbus.
I wish them luck.
Same here, buddy. Well, I think that's going to cap it for our hockey talk today. I don't really have anything else besides my Buffalo Sabres, obviously drafting all 3 picks and not doing much of anything. I like Matthew Savoy, great player. But also had a really good time. I got to go see the prospect tournament with the Sabres, really good young core. I think they're on the uprise, and I'm not being a homer. They need at least three more years of some of these young bucks getting some NHL muscle. And then also trying to figure out if they'll sign one of their prospect goaltenders too, because it seems like they don't want to stay. But as of right now, they're on a pretty good line. But I think that's going to cap it for hockey, unless you got something else, buddy.
That's about all I got today.
All right. Well, thank you for joining. We're going to switch on over to, I believe, football. So, Sam, good seeing you.
See you
Until next time, take it easy. All right, everybody. I'm going to add on our football unit, and we've got the boys today. We've got the quad. It is back. We've got Tim, Shane, and Ben. How are we doing, boys?
Doing great.
What's new and exciting?
Football season right around the corner, just ready for it to start.
I know. We got a little sniff of training camp going on, at least for our Buffalo Bills going on here. So it's a really good time, especially to get back into football. Love seeing all the boys back too. So really exciting time for sure. But that being said, let's get into the first couple topics here. And we've got our beloved Baker Mayfield finally gets out of Cleveland. The Panthers will continue to pay $4.85 million for Baker Mayfield's salary so far, but the Browns are going to retain $10.5 million. So add that on top of also Deshaun Watson's all guaranteed contract. Probably looks really nice on their accounting staff. So, boys, let's start it off. What do we think of the trade? We've got pick number 1 and pick number 3 of the 2018 draft on the same team. That's what I like to hear. That's what I love to see.
I mean, I liked the trade for Carolina. I think, you're only giving up a 5th for a guy who I think is better than Sam Darnold. He played all through last year with that shoulder injury. He got a lot of hate for some reason. It was kind of mixed bag, I feel like, for Cleveland fans. You had people who were like, oh, get him out of here, and other people that still love him because, he led him to the playoffs for the first time in a long time with bad team. I didn't think it was the greatest team. Obviously, now they have Watson, which who knows what's going to happen there. It could be 8 games, could be a whole season. For all we know, the NFL might not even suspend him because that's how the NFL works. But I think Carolina, I think it's a good move. I think you're giving another chance to Baker, and I'm still not I'm not going to say he's a bust yet. Obviously he hasn't lived up to the number 1 hype. I don't think he'll live up to that hype, but I think he can still revive his career somewhere else. Maybe Carolina's that place. I don't know, but I think for Carolina, I think it's a steal of a move.
This situation reminds me a lot of the Jacksonville coach process. Like, in the most ass-backwards way possible, Jacksonville ended up with a pretty good coach in Doug Peterson. And in the most ass-backwards way possible, Carolina's going to enter this season with a drastically better quarterback room than they had last season. Now, 2021 Baker Mayfield, flat out stunk. He wasn't very good. He was a complete disaster. And I know he was hurt, but he was behind a really good offensive line with a great running game. Their receiving core was nothing spectacular. But if you could find a way to get just some of that 2020 Baker Mayfield, who was really, really good, I believe the last 10 or 12 games, he was probably a top 10 quarterback for that stretch. He struggled early on adjusting to Stefanski, adjusting to Odell and all that, but he really turned on, that last 3 quarters of the season. If you can get some of that, Carolina's roster isn't terrible. I mean, their offensive line isn't great, but it is improved from last year. I'm not super big on this coaching staff. I was a huge Matt Rule guy when he got the job, and I feel like I have been deceived by Matt Rule. I thought he was going to be this, CEO, really change the culture, but here he is quoting Jay-Z in post-game press conferences. Nothing he really says makes sense. He kind of just rambles on and on and on and says nothing. But the team, the roster itself is not terrible if Baker can be a little bit of 2020 and not 2021. Obviously, they have, playmakers all over their defense. Christian McCaffrey's returning back healthy. DJ Moore's a really good young player.
I think the issue for the Panthers at this point, and you kind of talked about, Tim, is what did you expect from the coaching staff, right? Because this inherently is a good move because Darnold can't play. Okay, he can't get on the field. I'm sorry. Like, I was not a Matt Corral guy at all, but even I would have been like, yeah, just let him play because, at least we don't know if he can play or not, right? Getting Mayfield in here gives you a floor if he's healthy of, a capable offense, right? You have a guy who can play quarterback in the NFL. In a best-case scenario, he's a mid-tier starter, which is better than a lot of teams have when he's healthy. And it's at least going to give them a chance to compete this year opposed to probably being another 4 or 5 win team like they were last year. Can they really compete in the sense that could they be a 7th seed in a really weak NFC? Maybe if everything breaks their way and the defense comes to play especially, and you get a healthy Mayfield for 15, 16 games or more. But ideally, this is just basically coaching staff saying, hey, we don't want to lose our job, and he gives us a better chance of not having that happen than anyone we could have gotten outside of maybe Garoppolo, but I'd still take Mayfield at this point.
All I'll say is they used to wear shirts in Cleveland that said Baker touchdown maker. So
yeah,
who knows?
He was fine in Cleveland. Yeah,
we could get that back in Carolina. Do I think
Yeah.
so? Probably not that. He probably won't be that good, but he'll give him a chance to compete in every game. So I like it.
If he can just be the 20th best quarterback or more,
if he's the 20th best quarterback, they're in the playoffs.
I think it's very possible because
in the NFC, it's very, very possible.
In the NFC, especially, because that would make him like a top 5 NFC quarterback at this point. Because
20th best Baker Mayfield, Carolina might win 9-10 games.
It's very possible.
I think you got 2 free ones with the Falcons. They're a disaster.
That's rough, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, guys, real quick. We'll go through you guys one by one. What does this mean for Sam Darnold? Is he completely done? Is he completely done in the NFL? Does he have realistically another shot of being a starter on any other team? I mean, he's sitting behind Baker Mayfield, who's not even a proven guy in this league. Usually, if you want a second redemption, you go sit behind somebody who's been successful, very successful in the league. Obviously, he doesn't really have that choice right now. So he's going to be sitting back being like, yeah, I was taking 2 spots after this guy. Now we're on the same team. Lost my job. I've been on 2 teams already. What's going on and what's going to happen for Sam Darnold going down the road?
I think he'll be a career backup. I mean, that's the thing. He's good enough to be a backup quarterback in my mind. Maybe not like one of those best backups, like a Case Keenum, who like when you have him behind your starting quarterback, you're like, okay, that's all right. Or Mitch Trubisky behind how Allen had him last year. I mean, or Ryan Fitzpatrick, for God's sake. I mean, I don't know if Ryan Fitzpatrick would say is a great backup, but he was a good backup his career. He played 14 years. I mean, he obviously was doing something right. So I think he could be a decent backup quarterback for any team that needs him.
I mean, for me, I look at this whole situation, and I look at like Baker coming into Carolina. If he had gotten traded, say, to Seattle, I would have had so much more praise on Baker having a successful season this upcoming year, being on a Seattle team versus a Carolina team. I just like the way their offense, and I like the whole entire team, including defense, up in Seattle rather than Carolina. That's me personally. So I think he would have a little bit more success, especially with a coaching staff and a decent organization. Even though they got rid of Russell Wilson or had to move on from him, it seems like they're still trying to make it work up there. So kind of like you guys were talking about, especially Tim, it kind of all depends on where you're put into situational wise, especially when it comes down to your GM and coaching staff. I think Darnold, if he gets an opportunity it's obviously going to be on another team. But I think for him to actually thrive and to have a realistic chance, it's going to have to be with a team that's had some consistency at a coaching position or a GM position. Because right now, you look at Darnold's career, he got stepped into the New York Jets, which was a terrible football program. He had no shot there. Then he gets moved on to Carolina. What were they? What were they moving in? Obviously, he's not the quarterback to save a franchise right now. But yes, can he be a Kirk Cousins and get you a couple playoff victories or a couple playoff appearances? I don't know. I think it all comes down to coaching and the overall office of an organization that he'd be playing for.
I think the issue for Darnold ultimately right now is that he's in this weird line of like, because you said about Ben is that he's ideally at this point a backup quarterback. Like you think he can be that. The issue I think with him right now is ideally you want your backup quarterback to be the guy that can run the offense, just gets it done in the most basic way possible, doesn't hurt the team, maybe doesn't help it either, but just allows your team to continue to function. With Sam, he has these huge fluctuations of play. Like his start to the season last year was fantastic, realistically. And then the wheels fell off and you never found them again, right? Like he doesn't have the down to down or even the week to week or down to down consistency to be a starter at this point. But if you have him as your backup, yeah, he might come in and that week he might play great. But then if he's going to have to play for 3-4 more weeks, you don't know what you're going to get out of him and any really given play at this point, let alone season. So I think that's what's going to hold him back is he could be a guy that flames out completely just simply based on the fact that you might not be able to trust him to come in and win you some games as a backup at this point.
I wasn't a big Darnold guy coming out in 2018. And I thought if he was ever going to be something, all of these bad habits that he had would have to be weeded out.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you're a young quarterback playing behind a bad offensive line and throwing to other bad players, your bad habits get amplified and they don't get weeded out, especially if you don't have a good coaching staff behind you. And I believe the rookie year was the Todd Bowles Jets coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
And then comes in Adam Gase, the quarterback guru of the mid 2010s. And Darnold's bad habits just got worse and worse and worse. And now he's 24, 25. We've got 4 years of data now that just show you Sam Darnold is probably not ever going to be a high-level starting quarterback. Now, I think if I'm Sam now, my priority is how do I stay in the NFL?
Yeah.
How do I continue to get compensated with U.S. dollars to play quarterback? And that is be competition, right? Every year there is a quarterback going into his second, third, fourth year who hasn't lived up to standards, and that team normally brings in competition. The Broncos did it with Drew Lock when they brought in Teddy Bridgewater, and look, Teddy Bridgewater ended up winning the job. So that could be a situation for Sam. And then you take that competition job. If you're really, really good, maybe you get another shot to be a starter, but maybe you become a really high-paid backup like Teddy Bridgewater is now in Miami. I think he's one of the 10 highest paid backups in the league.
Oh, for sure.
And that's not a bad gig, right? You get to sit on the bench, be around the team, access to all world medical stuff like that.
Well, if you have Tua
Get a lot of money.
Tagovailoa, you got at least 2 weeks off, but then you'll be back in. So
It's true.
Yeah.
I'm not going to touch the Tua thing with the bull right now. So
y'all gonna be eating some crow in October, and I'm gonna be right here.
Well, listen. I love Teddy a lot. He's the best quarterback on the Dolphins right now. So
Yeah, he's ridiculous. Look, I'm not some diehard Tua stan, but we've gotten hyperbolic. But that's a topic for another day.
I had to.
For another day. But hey, we got a comment here real quick. I'll pull it up here on the screen for you guys. With Christian McCaffrey missing 23 games the last 2 seasons, is he still a top 5 running back heading into this year?
Yeah,
I don't think. I mean, he's not. I don't even think he's top 8, top 10 anymore.
I think even last year, he played, 2 games last year? He was the best player on the field by a mile. I mean, and the thing is, it's not like his
being
injuries
good
are
to being healthy.
But that's the thing. His injuries aren't major injuries. The last year was just that nagging ankle that just kept coming back and back and back. And part of me felt like maybe Carolina's just pushing him back or whatever it is. But, I mean, CMC is, at least talent-wise, easily a top 5 running back.
Yeah.
It's just this is that year where if he can't stay healthy this year, now comes in the question of how much longer are teams going to put up with this, even though he's got the talent. Because, I mean, easily he puts up, easily 100 purpose yards each game when he plays.
Yeah, for
Probably,
sure.
probably by halftime.
Yeah, so for me,
yeah.
it all depends on just if he can stay healthy this year. But if he's healthy this year, I think it's easily a top 3 running back.
So when he's healthy, he's probably the most valuable offensive weapon, and at least one of the 3 most valuable offensive weapons. Because there's this whole idea of like running backs now have to be 2-way players in terms of receiving and rushing, right? And that is definitely valuable, but McCaffrey is a different player than even the other guys. Like Austin Eckler is awesome as a receiving back. Like he's kind of the guy that a lot of people look at without CMC out there. He's still nothing compared to McCaffrey as a receiver specifically. He's a different level of player from a route runner, from after the catch, speed after the catch as well. Like just to be able to pull away from guys once he gets to the second level on linebackers. Like
I agree. He takes the suicide angles too, especially the unmakeable plays. He decides to do that, while the other guys will sit back and take the professional or the regular route. As I see it all the time. But go ahead, man. I mean that's
but that's the thing is like that. If you're talking about is he a top 5 running back coming into the year? If he's healthy, yes, but we just don't know that, right? Like the question should be more a healthy CMC. Is he a top 5 running? Yes. Obviously, because that you have to have that caveat. Because if he's not healthy, it doesn't matter how good he is or not. He's not playing.
I mean, we could go on and on and talk about any player and any league. Hey, if they were healthy, are they the best of all time? Are they the greatest of all time?
Right. So,
I mean, as of right now, and I'm so true to this. I think part of being a great player is being able to stay healthy.
Right.
I think I think a lot of people and a lot of scouts look into that, especially in how players rehab for maybe college injuries, how well they bounce back. That is such a huge factor and defines of being great. So for me, if he's healthy, that's the thing. If he's healthy, yes,
you don't have any worries.
He's a risk taker. He's a risk taker. He does everything so much better and so much more fine-tuned than almost anybody in the league, right? You look at a guy like Jonathan Taylor. Yes, he's a great back, but he really doesn't make my eyes pop like Christian McCaffrey does, especially for how he's used around the entire field. Derrick Henry is just a straight runner because he's huge, right? McCaffrey's got every single element that you want in a running back. But due to everything that he's done, he's sustained injuries. Not even horrible injuries like you were talking about earlier, but just minor ones that keeps him off the field. And that's what I determine from being a good player. So
I will say he reminds me of like the Michael Thomas of running backs the past 2 years, where people for some reason still have because Michael Thomas is a top 10 receiver when healthy, but that's the thing. Can they stay healthy and stay on the field? So I think if there's a comparison to a player, I think that's it. And we'll see this upcoming year, but I think he'll be a top 10 running back as long as he plays 13, 14 games.
That's the goal at this point. I think you should be looking at, like, if the Panthers, if they get 13, 14 games at him, they'll be happy at this point. I think that's what they're looking to do.
If Christian McCaffrey is healthy, you are winning your fantasy league if you have him.
Because
dude was going for 2,000 all-purpose yards behind Matt Paradis and the 4 of us. But now they've got Ike Mekwonu, top 10 pick, and Ike Mekwonu is just a mauler in the run game. I can't wait to see him play at the next level. And again, it's not a great offensive line by any stretch of the imagination, but they were one of the 2 worst lines in the league the last 2 years, both of them. Like they were horrible. And now he's got a lot of rest too. He's been sitting out for quite a while. And they're going to need to lean on him because their quarterbacks are Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and Matt Corral. So I think he's going to get the ball a ton. And if he's healthy, he's going to be right up there in contention for Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to cover it for that little pop-up question. Let's get into the next segment. Kyler Murray signs his extension. Yay, Cardinals fans. This is great for you. Obviously a really big deal. Yearly, he is now the second highest paid quarterback in the league, making other quarterbacks and other franchises seem underpaid. But, this is really just a good signing, I guess, for Arizona if they want Kyler Murray to be the face of the franchise over the next who knows how many years. But, Man, I mean, we've been waiting for this forever. Finally happens. I will say, though, that there is one thing that kind of surprised me in this contract. In his contract, there is a clause that says it is mandatory that he participates in 4 hours of independent study per game week. Why the hell is that in an NFL contract? There
Because he
are
plays too
quarterbacks,
many
there
video
are players
games.
that go way beyond that. The fact that that's in a contract drives me nuts, and I was wondering why the hell is this happening? Why are you signing this guy? Little odd.
It's so weird because like I think if you look at Kyler just from a talent perspective, right? Now obviously he's not the second best quarterback in the NFL. That's what he's getting paid like. But we all know the reason why that is because he was the next guy to get paid, right? Like we know this. Like Rodgers is kind of in his own stratosphere because he basically owns the Packers organization, so that's kind of a different contract at this point. But as far as like new contracts that are actually like for not technically not, true veteran or established players, he was the next guy up. So that's the contract is what it is. We kind of knew that's what it was going to end up looking like. But from a pure talent perspective, I really like Kyler Murray. He throws the ball better than most guys in the league, in my opinion, just from a pure arm talent perspective, being able to throw the ball down the field. Stuff I've seen him do is ridiculous at his size, obviously, too. You have to factor that in. Great rushing threat. But yeah, that piece you said, Matt, is just strange. Like, I'm sure there's something going on there that like we don't really know the background for it. I don't know exactly why they would feel like they need to put that in there. If it's something that he's refused to do in the past, or if they just feel like, hey, let's throw it in there just to kind of make sure he does this if they've had issues with it. But to me, like a lot of the issues you've seen with this team are down the stretch, which makes me think that maybe it is like teams kind of every year, even though he does get better every year, they kind of start to get in his head a little bit, or they can confuse him more as the season goes on. And maybe that's where this is stemming from. But either way, it's not a good look to have this in your contract. This is not good.
All I'll say is I am glad I am not an Arizona Cardinals fan. Because I'm going to disagree with you, Shane. I have not seen too much. I mean, like, yeah, he's had crazy plays or he's had those highlights. But for me, Kyler Murray's had two teams that should be like he's on a very good Cardinals team, in my opinion. I think they have James Conner in the backfield's a great running back. You have good receivers. I mean, I know you lost Kirk now, but it just is a question mark to me of why you're giving this guy this much money when what has he done for you so far? I mean, he
went
really
to the
in
playoffs and
reality
lost the playoff game. I mean, what
started
why
8-0, and what did he do? I mean, exactly like you said, Matt. He hasn't done anything. I mean, it just blows my mind kind of that this contract, and especially that you have to put that in there. I mean, 4 hours per week. It's a Sunday morning to Matt Ryan. I mean, not a Sunday morning, a Tuesday morning to Matt Ryan. It's not even, it's like laughable that they have to put it in there. And for me, it's a huge question mark. And now it's like, how much is Lamar going to get paid? I mean, he's the guy that I'm shocked that he even got an extension before Kyler. On top of the fact that Kyler was speaking out on social media and all this, saying that to me is not a leader. If you have to put the clause in, that's also a sign showing he's not a leader. And for the fact that they started 7-8-0, I think it was, if I'm not wrong, I could be wrong. But
I know they were 10-1 at one point. I don't know if
10-1, and
yeah,
we didn't hear anything
I
about
believe
them.
they lost to Detroit, so that
Yeah.
says something.
Yeah.
But we didn't hear anything about it past. They were 10-1. They were 10-1, and then boom, it was like, oh, they made the playoffs, but they bounced in the first round. So for me, Kyler Murray, I don't really know if I'm sold on him yet. I know he can be a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong; he's still a good to great quarterback. But will he ever be top 5, top 7, top whatever it is, a guy that can lead you to the Super Bowl? I don't know. I really don't know if he can lead a team to the Super Bowl yet because of the fact that we've seen the collapses over and over and over again from him, and specifically him, and now him after this whole thing of him saying, oh, I'm different than other people. I see it coming before it happens. Well, what about every pick six he threw? Do you see that coming before? Like, no, you need to watch film, like every other quarterback does. And the fact that they put that in the contract is just laughable, and I don't really get that extension to me.
Even though the game has changed drastically over the years and decades, to me, it seems like every single time the most consistent thing is a starting quarterback that becomes a franchise quarterback and a successful franchise quarterback. They're a vocal individual and talk nothing but team, and they don't go out and start gloating about themselves, or they don't start putting their issues out in the media. For me, it's never worked out for any other player. Maybe a couple here and there says from some veteran quarterbacks, but this kid's a young buck still. So I don't know why he's got this attitude right off the bat going into a new contract year. If he was just looking for money and he's greedy about it, then congrats, dude, you did it. But right now, you've got an entire city, an entire fan base, and the Cardinals waiting for you to make some big moves this upcoming season. And like you said, Choop, they had a stacked offense, like wonderful. Even older guys like Larry Fitzgerald. What a great wide receiver for a young guy to start his career with. Um, to me, I think it's going to be a little bit harder for him this year, and it shouldn't be with all the talent that's left the NFC and gone to the AFC. So going forward, and especially that clause I talked about earlier, it literally makes me mad, and I'm not even an Arizona Cardinal fan. So
It also adds so much pressure to him now. Where if he doesn't perform, the people are going to be coming after him in a heartbeat.
They're gonna go tell him to go play baseball.
I really do think that the clause is in there because of the video games. I mean, he's a professional gamer as well. And I don't know if this rumor is true, but there were rumors that the Cardinals are bad at home because Kyler Murray stays up too late on Saturday nights playing video games, and he's not getting a full night's. I don't know how true that is. I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, what's up with Arizona young athletes in video games? Because the Suns have the same thing going on with DeAndre Ayton. He gets to practice on 2 hours of sleep because he was up till 4 a.m. playing video games. But, I mean, Kyler has taken small little jumps every year, which is kind of encouraging, but number one overall pick, I'd expect a little bit more than small jumps. The talent around him has gotten a lot better, which explains why they're winning more games. I don't think Kyler or this team is going anywhere with Cliff Kingsbury as the head coach. Yeah. I mean, they got ridiculed when they hired him, and now we're like, oh, deservedly so. Because really, that is a loaded roster. And last year, that division was not very good. The Seahawks were bad. The Rams were really good. But the 49ers played what? I think they played like 3 games with Trey Lance, who was a rookie and hadn't played football in a whole calendar year. And I believe Trey Lance beat the Cardinals in Arizona. I know he played against Cardinals in Arizona. I think they won that game, and the Cardinals scored like 9 points. And they'll just have days like that where they have all this talent on offense and this supposed innovator at head coach, and they just can't score. Like, them making the playoffs was an underachievement last year because they started 10-1. And they lost to a Rams team, and outside of Cooper Kupp, obviously, the guy that was killing them was Cam Akers, fresh off Achilles surgery.
That's actually, you mentioned that, Tim. Like, that's kind of my biggest problem with this team moving forward, or at least this year coming up, is there's a lot of teams that are going to be in contention for this, but I think that especially if they have any injuries at all and like J.J. Watt doesn't show up again like he did last year, they might have the worst defense in the NFL next year. Like, I legitimately believe that. That defense, unless guys make huge jumps from where they've been, could very easily end up at the bottom of the standings. Like, he's going to have to carry this team if they win 9-10 games, even in a weak NFC. So that's what they're going to have to from.
Their corner room's despicable.
Especially, like, it's bad. Like, the safeties are good. You got Buda Baker there, but like outside corner, specifically outside corner.
Yeah, your best corner is the slot guy.
Yeah, it's not pretty. Like, it's not good.
Oh, so, the Cardinals did beat the Niners, but it was 17-10. So it's not exactly like Kyler Murray was the reason that they won that game. Like, I guarantee you can go back to most of these games and say, is Kyler Murray the reason they won? I mean,
the first 11 games. I think the film room stuff is becoming an issue because realistically, he doesn't have to really know a lot more about the offense that he already knows because he's been the offense he's run his entire life, basically. You need to challenge a guy like that to make him keep learning, and they're not doing that with Cliff right now.
And he's got a built-in disadvantage because I'm not a big believer in the whole you have to be this tall to play quarterback nonsense. But when you are that short, you struggle in the intermediate areas of the field.
Yeah,
it's the area of the field you simply cannot see, right? Go look at the worst quarterbacks in the intermediate areas. It's the really bad ones and then the short ones. Doesn't matter how good they are everywhere else. They're going to be a bottom 12, bottom 10 quarterback in intermediate passing, unless they are just, again, a whiz in the film room. And evidently, Kyler Murray is not.
All right, boys. Well, I don't know what you said for the past 2 minutes, but I'm back. Either way, I'm pretty sure you guys did a good job. Anything else on the Kyler Murray topic before we get over to we're going to do one more. We're going to wrap it up real quick.
Ravens are going to have to take out a second mortgage to pay Lamar Jackson.
Seriously.
50 mil, you think, guys, a year, maybe close to that?
I'm glad my quarterback is this man.
Signed and done. Signed and done, baby.
Yeah, you guys
already at a discount.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Oh, wait. When Tua has his big year this year, what is he?
10, 15 million, right?
That's what terrifies me. If he just blows up right out of nowhere, and now the Dolphins can't pay him because they paid everybody else.
Listen, if they pay him,
man. You
it'll be great. I'll be ecstatic about it. So,
I've been on record. If he magically blows up, he should gouge them for every dollar they got because they treated him like crap.
Oh, I'd love to see him get paid like $50 million a year just because that would make me laugh a whole lot that they had to do that. But we'll see.
Well, so regardless of that, the last topic I wanted to talk about, which I'm going to try and get up here, is the Madden ratings that have been coming out over the past couple weeks here. And the one that, always scratches our heads are, who gets the 99 overall rating and stuff. But I'm going to try and pull it up here. Computer's being a little weird. Oh, I don't think it's working right now. But we have the wide receiver rankings. And so obviously we all know Davante Adams became the 99 overall wide receiver for this year. And he's had a couple comments about his new situation, his new team in the Vegas Raiders. First off, is he worth the 99 overall? And did you see the comment he said about his new quarterback and how his old quarterback share a common trait, and that's that they're both Hall of Famers?
Okay, so I just want to say this, and I'm stealing this a little bit from one of my favorite programs to watch, which is the Rich Eisen show. They talked about how, with him saying that, I think what he's probably trying to say, hopefully, and I think he kind of did reiterate this, is that he wants to be part of the reason why people will think that Derek Carr will be a Hall of Famer, right? Which, if he puts up the kind of numbers that he has been putting up with him, I mean, these guys did play in college together. They should be able to go back into things, and Adams is an even better player now than he was then. And they somehow win a title together. And again, he helps Carr continue to put up really good stats and get the counting stats up. Is it possible with a championship ring? Maybe he could sneak in at some point if he plays long enough. But yeah, this is kind of an asinine thing to say at this point in his career. So
I do think he's a 99, Davante Adams first.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
I think
we all agree with that.
I don't think we really have to debate that one.
I think there's two receivers you could give a 99 to, and I think it's top two right there, Kupp and Adams. I mean, maybe not Kupp just yet because he has to do it a little longer, but I mean, yeah, I don't think he meant that Derek Carr is like a Aaron Rodgers type Hall of Famer. I mean, maybe if he wins a Super Bowl or two, people would be talking then about Derek Carr potentially being a Hall of Famer. But again, he has to actually show up and win some playoff games and string it together, get to an AFC championship, get to a Super Bowl. So I don't think he meant it as in anything, kind of like what Shane was saying. I think Shane was right on the money with it. I don't think he meant that trying to compare Rodgers and Carr, because we all know that Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's one of the greatest to ever play the game. So, I mean, yeah, I think Davante Adams deserves the 99. I think he was a little misinterpreted with his comments. So, no harm, no foul with those comments. It's although I will say this, I've not been a big at first I was with the whole Tyreek comments about Tua and saying that he's most accurate in the NFL, all this and that. I was very critical of that. The difference is Derek Carr's made the playoffs and kind of shown for years now that he's the guy. And that's why those comments about Devontae Adams doesn't exactly bother me. And I know he cleared him up a little bit. Where compared to the Tyreek Hill comments, I mean, what has Tua done to make any of those statements close to being true yet? I mean, for all we know, Tua came in, we knew he was accurate. We knew he was a very accurate quarterback. I thought he was going to be one of the most accurate in the league. So he could very well be one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league. But I think that's why it's a little different between the Tyreek comments and the Devontae comments. So I just wanted to clear that up before everybody's like, oh, you were hating on the Tyreek comments, but not the Devontae comments. So that's my reasoning why Devontae's comments are a little different than Tyreek's, and the fact that Devontae cleared it up, what he was trying to say, where Tyreek just continues to say stuff over and over and over again. So that's my take on it.
Devontae's comments were definitely less hyperbolic.
Yeah.
Because, let's be real, Derek Carr threw for 4,000 yards last year.
I think close to 5,000, yeah.
Yeah, it gets lost because every once in a while he will have just one of the worst stinkers you've ever seen. At the Atlanta game, I think it was this year, last year, don't remember which one. I think it was last year. The Raiders really needed to win the game, and Derek Carr played possibly the worst game of his entire career. I think the Falcons scored 2 defensive touchdowns off of Derek Carr, and we all know the Falcons haven't had a good defense since the year they went to the Super Bowl. But is Devontae Adams a 99? Absolutely. Best receiver in the NFL, 100%. Without question, which is why it makes it a little bit odd that he's wearing a different uniform this year.
Okay, well then, real quick, to get into the main portion of this whole topic here, take the list, look at it. Who are we missing? Who's up there that shouldn't be? In my opinion, the one that's absolutely nuts, obviously a guy who was just in the Super Bowl this past year, and Jamar Chase. I mean, the guy had an unbelievable season. He's a freak athlete. I think he should at least be in the top 10. Me personally, I think Amari Cooper is overrated. It doesn't seem like he's the dynamic wide receiver that all these other guys can be. Yes, is he consistent? Is he steady with certain routes? Yes, but it seems like he's kind of limited to being great at certain routes, and especially in a certain offense. We'll see how he does in Cleveland this upcoming year. Also, too, I mean, I like Terry McLaurin, but I do think there are better wide receivers out there in the league right now, personally. I could even mention a guy like T. Higgins. I think he's an absolutely great wide receiver. He had some awesome moments this season, especially for being a guy that's a freak of nature, just an athlete, able to make any type of route, to make any type of catch. Not saying that, Terry is not top 10, but I think some other guys could definitely be up there. But definitely overrated guy in there, Amari Cooper, a guy who should be well above there, Jamar Chase.
I agree that Jamar is too low at 87, but here's the other thing that people, I think, forget about with Madden that they do every year with the young guys is Madden is a game where players, I mean, they progress at such a different level than realistically, where if you put him at a 92, 93, if you put Jamar Chase 92, he's going to be insane in Madden. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to say is like, it's too early to put him that high.
Too early to make him good. Got to make the games. Got to make them last long so people buy them.
Yeah, I'd probably put him at 89, 90. I do agree, though. I will say that I do like Terry McLaurin's rating. I mean, who's his quarterback's been, and he's been amazing. I think he's easily a top 10 receiver. I do agree, though, that Amari. He just hasn't proven to me to be, again, like Matt said, just a dynamic number one. Yes, he can be that number one, and he could be a good number one, but is he that Mike Evans style, Keenan Allen style, Justin Jefferson style? Like, is he that?
I don't think I've ever seen him make it a contested jump catch. Like, I honestly don't think I've ever seen it.
I know we had one game again with Dallas where he had like 10 or 11 catches, and then everybody was like, "Oh, he's back," and then I didn't hear his name the rest of the year.
The thing with Cooper that I think is really funny is the idea of Amari Cooper is great. Like the idea is whenever you watch him play and like he's on, you're like, oh yeah, I see it, I get it. You know, that's $100 million because that's what he got paid. Like I see it. But then when you see him play the rest of the time, you're like, yeah, he doesn't really look like he wants to be out there. Sometimes it feels like him at his best is probably about where he's rated here. Like when he's really on, I could see that. But the problem is when you're rating guys, obviously you can't just rate them on when they're at their best, right? You have to rate them on what they've been overall. Like I'd rather see a guy like even AJ Brown, who's such a unique player, right? A receiver, that size, that skill set. Like he's to me a top 10 threat, at least a receiver. Maybe he's not as refined as a couple other guys that have made this list right here. And that's probably why, because the problem with Madden 2 is their ratings, the way they're weighed. A player can be an 85 overall and be a better actual in-game player than, you know, Amari Cooper or even like a Keenan Allen, whose physical traits aren't going to be super high, but everything else is going to be good. So like Jamar Chase, for example, you said about it, Ben, like they don't want to make him a 92 right now because then he's going to be a 99 in year 2. And like, it's going to be insane whenever you play with him next year. But if you play with him and try to use him the way that the Bengals use him, that's how he's built to play, the way that the Bengals used him last year as that, you know, primary deep threat, physical threat down the field. He's still going to be good at those things. He just isn't going to have the ratings that some of these other guys have at certain other attributes.
So he's on page to become what Justin Jefferson is right now.
Kind of, yeah. And this going into it is now like with Jefferson where he's at. You could see. I'm not going to be surprised if Jamar is rated similarly to him.
I mean, look at the records that Jefferson has
broken.
Right. I mean, it's ridiculous. What
you can make an argument he should be in the top 4 or 3 of this list right now, realistically. Like just from what he's shown his first 2 years, like it's insane. So,
do you guys know who's not in the top 10 of Madden ratings for receivers, or probably the top 20, maybe even 30? The guy with the 10th most guaranteed money at wide receiver, Christian Kirk.
Well, there's a reason for that.
I'm gonna look at it right now.
That's beautiful.
That
is beautiful.
I'm pretty sure
he's like
I'm on page 3 right now of the ratings. I have not seen him.
I'm pretty sure he's gonna be rated in 80.
I think
maybe
he's an 81 overall.
81.
Yeah,
All right, please give me some names ahead of him. I'm just
Sterling
curious.
Shepard, Brandon Ayuk.
Brandon Ayuk didn't touch the field till like November last year.
Robbie Anderson, Marvin Jones, his opposite receiver.
Jerry Jeudy, who has not shown up one bit yet.
Don't tell me Zay Jones is ahead of him. Please don't tell me Zay Jones is ahead of him.
No. Who else here? Jarvis Landry's still rated ahead of him. That's interesting.
I mean, like
he's dynamic. Landry's dynamic.
It's a better year than usual for Madden. I'll say that. Usually they mess it up a lot more than this, but That's is questionable. Fair. I mean, the number one thing that I saw, I was looking at Michael Thomas's ratings. Right?
90, yeah.
This man, he's 90 talent, but this man has a 99 toughness.
Yeah, I don't.
Tell me how that makes
sense.
That
works. Maybe
he has 87 injury.
Like the guy can't go 5 minutes without tweeting about something about himself. How does he have 99 toughness?
Look, like he's a 90 overall talent easily, but toughness. I mean, come on. I mean, what are we doing? Is he never going to get injured? Because it's the opposite in real life.
Oh boy, man. I mean, it's so funny. Like this will always get our heads. It'll always get our attention each and every year. Yeah. It drives you nuts. But literally, great point though about Christian Kirk, because that is Madden at its prime right there. Just
go Jags.
Ranking him that low, and he's cashing in that much money. Good for him. Let's all give him a round of applause.
They should definitely take a copy of his contract and put it in the Hall of Fame. Because it literally tanked the receiver market so bad that teams literally are like, I guess we're just going to trade our best receiver. Like multiple different teams did that. Like we can't pay him that much money. Like that's literally what he did. It's insane.
Also, agent is Zeke Sandu of Elite Athletic Management.
Put him in the Hall of Fame.
Management. That guy is going to have so many clients within the next.
Put him in the Hall of Fame. Put him next to Kirk Cousins bust for best contracts ever for a player. Like put him in there.
Madden needs to fix
everything.
The last thing they need to fix, which is really dumb. It's going to sound dumb, but I just always find it funny. I'm sorry, but Justin Tucker's a 99.
Yeah, the kicker ratings are weird. Like you can't make guys 90s. Like, come on, let's have some fun with kickers. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, whatever.
I think my long snapper Reed Ferguson, if you're listening out there, he needs to be bumped up too.
They need to make long snapper a position.
An actual position.
I'm
You're
so
like-
tired of
not
seeing a
messing around.
36 overall tight end
Center
on my team.
or center.
Yeah.
It used to be center. I'm like, get out of here.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, dude, as long as I get noticed the following year, I bet their percentage of upgrading in the overall ratings, it's probably over 60, 80%. I mean, my goodness. I mean, they'll jump up from 30 to 50 or 30 to 70, depending on the year you have. So
Yeah.
once again, Madden just toying with us and we get sucked into it. But I think that's going to end our football unit here for today. Thank you guys for joining. I think you guys are going to handle the rest of it for today, and you're going to go talk some basketball. So I'm out of here. It was a pleasure, boys. Until next week, we'll continue to do some more Madden rating talks. That's always a fun topic, but hopefully some better news to come out of the couple of training camps that are underway. So we'll see you next week, boys.
See you, Matt.
Yep.
All right. Now we got some basketball going on here. I don't know if we're going to pull up any of the pictures or anything just right yet. We do have the off-season review, though, trade review. Let's just get right into it. I mean, there's 4 trades that we really want to talk about, right? We'll each give a grade to it. But the first one I think we could talk about is the most recent. We'll go from most recent to kind of the farthest back ones that we haven't talked about. But first, it's the Malcolm Brogdon trade, right? Just got shipped to Boston. Not too much given up, Ed Naismith, Tice, a first rounder in 2023, and two other I think players for Brogdon back over to Boston. So what do you guys think of the trade? What do you grade them, each team? And let's start with Tim this time. What are you grading each team, and what do you think from both sides?
I think this is easily an A+ for the Celtics. I mean, look at their playoff minutes. Tice played minutes in the playoffs because Robert Williams was either out or on a minutes restriction. Or let's say there was foul trouble with Horford and Williams or whatever. Naismith, I believe, checked in towards blowouts and played a couple games because of Marcus Smart's injury. And then a first-round pick, which doesn't matter if you're contending. They gave up literally nothing. It's
And
like the
Malik
Christian Wood
Fitz,
trade.
Malik
Malik Fitz
Morgan,
I believe none of those guys dressed in the
Nick
playoffs.
Stauskas maybe played one game this year.
I think Nick Stauskas checked in at the end of a blowout too.
The immortal
But-
Nick Stauskas.
but-
Yeah, go Michigan.
Nothing. They gave up pretty much what the Rockets got for Christian Wood, but Malcolm Brogdon's a lot better than Christian Wood. I know there's a lot of talk about the Celtics need a true point guard. I mean, Malcolm Brogdon's not like a true point guard, but he's the closest you're going to get for that price, and he's really good. He's an adequate to above average defender, but he can score, he can facilitate. He's just a really, really good, sound offensive player. Kind of got lost in Indiana because they weren't very good, and then he lost ball handling duties because they brought in Tyrese Halliburton, and you have to give Tyrese Halliburton the ball. But this instantly makes the Celtics better, and they just won the East, so do with that what you will.
Yeah, what do you think, Shane?
It's hard for me to disagree with Tim. I think it's, definitely like an A trade for sure. I think what's interesting about this, and this is kind of what you see from a lot of teams like the Pacers or some other teams that are kind of in a weird spot with their rebuild of they want to shed salary, but also they're not super concerned about getting a ton back because they just want to get rid of contracts to open up, flexibility basically. And getting a player of Brogdon's caliber for, again, what essentially is a first-round pick, because none of these guys are going to move the needle for the Celtics or the Pacers, realistically. A lot of these guys might get playing time next year just simply because the Pacers aren't going to have a ton of guys on the roster that need playing time realistically. But they're basically getting this for a first-round pick, which if the Celtics do anywhere near what they want to do, it won't matter at all, that first-round pick.
Tice is probably the best player Indiana's
Yeah,
getting.
I think right now.
And
yeah.
You can make a legitimate argument. He isn't a top 5 player at center on the Pacers because they have 1,000 centers.
That's the problem.
And they're
yeah.
all better than Daniel Tice.
Yeah, it's not looking great for any of these guys to make an impact, but still.
Maybe Naismith can become a role guy, a bottom of the bench guy, like role.
Just because I believe the only wings they have are Alize Johnson and Jeremy Lamb, because TJ Warren signed with
do they
the
still
Nets,
have?
right?
Yeah,
do they still have Brissett?
Okay, but he's more. I think they have him listed as like a forward.
Yeah, he's more of a forward, I guess, for them.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, I think it's an A+ out of the park for the Celtics. I think everybody can agree on that. Maybe a D for the Pacers. I mean, congrats, you got a first round pick. That's going to be what, in the 20s? Maybe
Yeah,
I
if
mean,
they're
Late 20s.
yeah,
late
hopefully.
20s. Yeah, so I think that's a pretty easy trade to go over. I think everybody can agree on that one. The Celtics did what they needed to do, and this was the one thing for me as a Celtics fan. I don't know if you guys ever saw me tweeting about it. For the past 2 months leading up to this trade, I was saying go get him, and I was saying give up way more than this. I
Yeah,
was
you could
saying
have
give up
justified it.
two first round picks, 3 first round picks, whatever. They give up a first. I saw this. I was like, this has to be false. There's no way that we gave up just a first. Naismith and Daniel Tice, who again didn't play too much for us, and he was the one who played the most out of all 5 of the guys traded. So, I mean,
And it wasn't very good.
3 of these guys might not even make the roster in Indiana. I mean, who knows? 3 of them
Yeah,
might not.
for sure.
But yeah, I mean that's a pretty easy trade. Brogdon over to the Pacers. Now the next trade I want to talk about is the Gobert trade, the Rudy Gobert. I mean, massive trade. This is so the Timberwolves get just Rudy Gobert. The Jazz get Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverly, Leonardo Balmero, Walker Kessler, the 22nd pick this past year, Jared Vanderbilt, 4 first-round picks, one of them protected in 2029, and a 2026 pick swap. So technically 5 picks and 5 players for Rudy Gobert. I mean, what do you guys think this time? Let you go first. What do you grade each team? Wolves, Jazz. How do you grade it?
I'm going to start with the Jazz because it's a lot less complicated to talk about. And this is a haul for really anybody, almost realistically. Like, this is a lot of capital, right? And a lot of capital down the line when who knows what the Timberwolves are going to look like in freaking 2029 or, whatever it ends up being. So to get this amount for an aging center that is still very obviously defensively, especially a great defensive player, and is a semi-valuable offensive player in certain situations, depending on how you run your offense. That's an amazing haul to get for a guy you wanted to get rid of at this point. So that's an A+ for them just from the amount of capital they're getting back for that guy. For the Timberwolves, the ultimate problem here is if they don't win a championship with him, then this is a terrible trade. If they win a championship with him, none of the stuff I just said about what the Jazz got matters. For a team like the Timberwolves especially, if you win a championship, it does not matter how much you gave up for Rudy Gobert if he's the missing piece for this team. Do I think he is? No. Not with the way the West is right now, not with how many other teams are also very, very good. I understand what they're trying to do here as far as the defensive component of this team. It's where they really struggled, obviously. They don't need any more offense at this point, especially if Anthony Edwards keeps up what he's been doing as far as his development. But it's just so much to give up, especially you give up a guy like Jared Vanderbilt, who's a really, really good player to have next to Cat. And I know you want to upgrade from that because as good as he was in that role, he's still not a true difference maker there. It's just so much to give up for maybe a playoff appearance and hopefully, an actual true series win. That's what I think is kind of the ceiling for this team next year. And it's going to take them finding other ways to get better before Gobert starts to get worse.
Yeah, what do you think, Tim?
This is, and I'm not being hyperbolic, perhaps the stupidest move that I have seen a team make in years. Have the Timberwolves watched basketball in 2022? One team is out there with 2 bigs. It's the Boston Celtics, and it works because everyone on the Boston Celtics can defend.
Yeah.
Okay, that is why it works. And also, Horford and Williams themselves can defend on the perimeter. Rudy Gobert, great rim protector. Having him on your team probably guarantees you a top 10 defense. Awesome. Very happy for you. Karl-Anthony Towns has to play the 4 now in any playoff lineup, unless you're just taking Mr. $40 million and 5 draft picks off the court in crunch time of the playoffs, which I don't think A-Rod and the rest of the ownership group's going to be too happy about.
No.
So Karl-Anthony Towns, let's run through the teams in the West. All right, the Lakers are a team we think is going to be pretty good because they have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Well, Anthony Davis is going to play the 5, so that's Rudy's problem. Karl-Anthony Towns guarding LeBron James?
Not ideal.
It's
Warriors.
fine. He might be guarding them, but he also might be giving up 50 points a game.
Is Karl Anthony Towns defending Andrew Wiggins on the perimeter? And God forbid he gets switched on a screen and has to guard Steph Curry or Jordan Poole. Phoenix is the only one, maybe, because they play small, but Jay Crowder doesn't really do anything with the basketball.
Nah, he's just out there.
Now, of course, what happens if you get switched on to Chris Paul or Devin Booker?
Okay.
Who is Minnesota guarding in the playoffs?
They pretty much have to hope that Edwards
the
becomes a
Clippers.
top 10 defender.
Right,
That's
the
what
Clippers,
he has to do
because I think the Clippers sometimes go with two bigs, with Zubac, and for a while it was Boogie, and they tried it with Serge Ibaka. It never really worked, so I assume at some point Kawhi is going to have to man up and play the four, and then boom,
He should.
new nightmare to deal with there for
Mhm.
Mr. Karl Anthony Towns, who A, is not a very good defender, and B, when he tries to play defense, he has the Jaren Jackson syndrome where he just fouls you. That's all he does.
Yeah.
And great, now your franchise player, even though it should be Anthony Edwards, is not on the court in crunch time because he has 5 fouls with 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So what do we got for grade for each team?
I'm going to give it an A+ for the Jazz and a D at the moment for the Timberwolves until, again, they have to win a championship. That's literally the only way they salvage this. They have to win an actual title. That's it.
If the Jazz are going full rebuild and they're committed to trading Donovan Mitchell, then this is great. This is a great start to your rebuild. Because do you know who's not going to be on the Minnesota Timberwolves in 2029? Rudy Gobert.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's 7'1". Those guys don't play at 37 years old, and they definitely don't play at a high level.
No.
But if they decide they want to try and keep Donovan Mitchell happy and build around him, then you kind of made it very hard because you didn't really shed any salary this offseason, so you can't supplant the roster with veterans. Donovan Mitchell is not a player who's going to stay in a bad market and stay loyal to a team if they're bad, right? He's been fine in Utah because they've been winning, playing for a great coach, and Rudy Gobert literally just changes the way your defense plays because he's probably the best rim protector of this generation.
Yeah.
No one's signing in Utah. I don't know. It doesn't matter how good Donovan Mitchell is. No one's like, hey, let's form a super team in Salt Lake City. It's not happening. So I think this is a sign of a clear rebuild. They're just kind of dragging their feet with the Donovan Mitchell situation. I read a report they want 8 draft picks, which, like, cool. I want to marry Elizabeth Olsen. Just some things aren't going to happen.
That's actually, I want to make this point real quick because I know we'll talk about Mitchell a little bit later. The one problem I have with this for the Jazz is that they got such a haul for Gobert compared to what they probably should have gotten for him, that now it's like, where do you start with the Mitchell conversation? Because, like, he's going to be worth more technically value-wise.
I think NBA teams might value Gobert more.
They might, but, like, are you going to be able to take less for him than you got from Gobert and feel good about it at this point? Like, I don't know if they want to do that because, like, they could and they probably will have to, but it's hard for me to think that, though.
My thing with Mitchell is I can find what he does well. He's an elite scorer, but it's really hard to build around him, which I think the Jazz are starting to realize because he's a 6'1" guard, but he can't defend, and we know he can't facilitate because they keep throwing cash at other point guards to run the offense for him.
Mm-hmm.
But with Gobert, it's annoying because he's really that bad on offense, but he really is like a generational rim protector. He's probably the best rim protector since Dwight Howard in his prime.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys nailed it. Except, like, look, if the Timberwolves win the championship, it's gonna be like the same thing as, like, all the Bills when they drafted Allen. Like, they outsmarted everyone. Right?
So none of it matters if you win the title. Like, there is no fleecing that can be done if you are the ones who walk away with the title. But I just obviously don't expect that to happen. That's kind of the issue.
I think this could potentially be one of those trades that legitimately does nothing for each franchise.
Yeah,
I really do. Like, the Timberwolves, they might go from this. What were they last year? The
8th or 9th seed.
I thought they were like
they were playing teams. So
they went to 7 because they won the home game.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, they were automatically in.
Yes.
And Pat Bev was crying, and
that was something. Yeah.
So there's that. They're going to go from a 7 to a 5 seed potentially.
Ideally, you want to get out of the play-in.
Like I said, for them to get out of the first round, it's all about matchup.
Yeah.
Because now they have to play 2 bigs, but neither one of them is really good perimeter defenders, right? It's not like you have Draymond Green out there. So could they contend with Memphis again? Yeah, because Memphis does like at times to put Jackson and Adams on the court at the same time. But again, maybe the Suns, because they just don't really have any bigs that threaten you at all. So Cat doesn't really have to be an elite defender in that series. He can kind of just do what he does, which is be a really good 7-foot player on offense.
Mhm.
But again, you get matched up with the Warriors in the first round. You draw the Clippers. The Pelicans are odd because they do like to play with Zion and a big when he's healthy. But again, Zion is the most powerful, most explosive player in the league. I don't really think Cat can hang with him.
I mean, we all know that picture of Cat going into Boogie Cousins, and he has just straight faced. Imagine Zion doing the opposite, where he's trying to back down Cat. I'm sorry, but I think Zion's going to win that most of the
And just
time.
even in a situation like boxing out, I mean, look, and it's not that Cat is like super. I mean, I do think Cat's a little soft. I'm not going to lie. I'm a Cat hater a little bit, but there are just some guys in the league right now that are aliens, and Zion is one of them. And like it or not, because of what they've built with that Anthony Davis trade and winning the Zion lottery, the Pelicans are going to be a team you have to go through in the West. Like, you have to deal with the Warriors for the next 3 to 5 years, but the 5 to 10, if Zion is healthy and Brandon Ingram continues to play like he's played, that's the team you got to worry about. And I don't think they can defend the Pelicans. If the Pelicans, what I would do is I'd be like, hey, Brandon Ingram, you're playing the 4, and you're going to put 45 points on Cat because he can't guard you on the perimeter. And Zion will deal with the height disparity with Rudy Gobert. But again, like I talk about with guys like Chet and Wembanyama, when you're that long, that tall, your functional strength takes a lot. Zion's got more functional strength than like anyone alive.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to give the Timberwolves a C because, it makes them better, but doesn't
They got the best player in the deal.
Yeah, you got the best player in the deal. For the other side of the Jazz, I think it's an A- move. I mean, it's phenomenal. I first heard it. It was one of those things, again, like we all said, 5 first-round picks is unbelievable. I know one's a pick swap and one's protected, but either way, that's unbelievable. Even just 3 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert, I think, is great. So there's that. It's probably the second biggest trade, maybe the biggest trade of the offseason. We're going to skip over the Jeremy Grant trade just because it's not really – it's kind of similar to the Brogdon trade with –
I don't know what the Trailblazers are doing, so I don't –
Yeah, what does it do for the Trailblazers, the Pistons? They get, a first-round pick from Milwaukee and 2 seconds. So, there you go. There's the trade.
Yeah.
And 2 other random players – not
good
random.
Good for them.
2 other picks that were swapped that were second-round picks. Good for them. Those are good trades. I guess it makes the Blazers better. And the Pistons
it does,
finally get rid of Jeremy Grant.
They couldn't guard anybody, so Jeremy Grant can
guard
again, somebody.
Grant's a good player. Like, it's not nothing really against him. It's just more like, are the Trailblazers going to now, not be kind of bad? Probably not. I mean,
maybe
a healthy Lillard,
team?
But
who's putting the ball in the bucket outside of Damian Lillard?
Yeah. Well, Simon's potentially, but
maybe you hope for.
Are they going to run those 2? Oh my gosh,
that's
it'd be the shortest
another 6'1" guard who can't defend and can't facilitate. Baby, let's
go. So there's not too much with that trade, but let's get into then maybe the biggest trade. I mean, definitely it's between this and the Gobert trade. Dejounte Murray gets traded. This is the trade. Is Dejounte Murray goes to the Hawks and Jock Landale. Wow, love that name also, by the way. Jock Landale. The Spurs then get Danilo Gallinari, who got waived right away and now is in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
A first-round pick from Charlotte, or via Charlotte from New York, though, and it's protected, by the way. 2025 first-round pick. 2026 pick swap, and a 2027 first-round pick. So 4 first-round picks. One's protected, one's a pick swap for Dejounte Murray, who is a 23-24, I believe, star in the league. And now you pair him up with Trey. What do you guys think? Tim, let's start with you. What do you grade each team, and what do you think for each team, both, or what do you think they got out of both, or this trade for both sides?
I got questions about the fit in Atlanta, but again, when you have really talented players, good coaches can make them fit. I I think I don't know if we talked about this or I just talked about it with one of my friends. The problem with is that Murray and Young are both ball dominant, but if you can teach Trae Young to be an off-ball threat the way Steph Curry has become, once Steve Kerr got there, then this works like it fits like a glove. I mean, the Hawks needed someone to defend, right? DeAndre Hunter is their only perimeter defender. Well, now you have DeJounte Murray. That's a nightmare. Hunter has to stay healthy, but DeJounte Murray, I believe the stats are 20 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 steals, only player to do it ever. And the only one to do 28, 8, and 2 is Michael Jordan. So really good company to be in. I think he kind of got lost in San Antonio because they weren't very good. I think this is definitely an A+ for the Hawks because he gave up Gallinari and draft picks. And like we said, this team was in the conference finals a year ago, dealt with some bad injury luck and a slow start this year, but they still found a way to creep back up into the playoffs. They won 2 play-in games, one of them on the road against the Cavs, who were really, really good to start the season and then fell off. For the Spurs, do you guys know what team in France Victor Wembanyama plays for? The one owned by Tony Parker. That's what this means for the Spurs.
And
This
if
is
they,
a full-on
if they
tank
lose
job.
the lottery,
Yeah, the problem is you might have Utah competing with you. And if they trade Donovan Mitchell, I mean, who's leading the starting lineup for the Jazz in those summer league uniforms? Jared Vanderbilt, baby.
yeah. What do you think, Shane?
I think that for the Hawks, for sure, like kind of like what you said, Tim, assuming you can have them play with each other and not get in each other's way as far as hogging the ball too much, I think that bringing Murray in really helps you hide Trae much more on defense than they've been able to. And it does give you a true lockdown defender that isn't just another guy who isn't really a true scorer. Like he brings you everything that you kind of don't have as a secondary scorer right now. And for the Spurs, kind of like you said too, they're just playing for the lottery at this point. They're trying to win that. They're trying to get assets to eventually build back up. I would have just rather kept a guy that you already know is fantastic, obviously, in general, and have that new face of your franchise. But if you are going to do this and just tear everything down and go for the number 1 pick next year, I hope that works out for you. But I give them a C just because I don't like the thought process at this point, because especially in the NBA, you're not guaranteed anything by tanking at this point. And for the Hawks, it's an A. Like, this is the kind of guy you want to have running with Trae Young if they can play together properly.
I got to correct myself. Wembanyama was on Tony Parker's team.
Yeah, it's not anymore.
He signed with a new team a couple months ago.
Yeah. I mean, I think you guys nailed it with this whole trade. I mean, the Hawks, it's an A to me. You get a young superstar, which, like you said, Tim, even if it doesn't work this year, you're going to find you should be able to find a coach that should be able to put this together, and you got years to figure it out. So I love the trade for the Hawks. And the Spurs, I mean, I'm giving this a straight F. I mean, if there's one thing we've learned this offseason, especially with the past 2 trades we've talked about, draft picks don't mean a thing anymore. So Sam Presti over in OKC, you got 19 of them, or how many got left? You got to do something with them. That's why I keep saying, go get, KD. You got the picks. Go get somebody. You got the picks. Because at the end of the day, this isn't 2015 anymore where the Sixers are trying to tank and get the number 1 pick for 4 straight years so they can build a super team. Because how did that work out for them? Didn't really work out too well for them. So it's at the end of the day, you got to hit on your picks too, because that's the thing is most of these guys aren't hitting on their picks. Most of these teams are not hitting on their picks. So if it's just I just don't understand it for the Spurs. I really don't. And Pop, who's getting older, I mean, you really want to go through a longer rebuild than you are going, because it's not like Victor Wembanyama is going to turn your team into a contender in year 1. So I think you guys nailed it. It's a confusing trade. I give the Spurs an F, straight F. There's nothing.
Greg Popovich is going to be 74 years old on draft day next year.
Yeah,
I don't think he sees this even a little bit of this rebuild through Purse. I think he just calls it quits and stuff.
How many points is Josh Primo going to average this year?
No, I think Keldon Johnson,
like 38% shooting.
Keldon Johnson is going to be the guy. I mean, Keldon
Johnson going to have like 25 points probably just because
he shoots like 50% from threes. He's
some stupid
one of the most efficient scorers But that's the thing. He plays power forward at like what 6'5", 6'6".
He's going to
Yeah.
go from one of the most efficient players to one of the most inefficient players because every single play is going to be, all right, we just paid you.
Go
you
ahead,
know,
Keldon. Get us 35 a game. Go do
find
it.
a way for us not to lose by 50 tonight.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, interesting trades. Needless to say, with the Jazz trade, now the Spurs trade. I mean, it's just interesting to see. There's a couple trades that might still happen this offseason, and we're going to talk about one right now. One guy that could be traded. We talked about him a little bit, so we're not going to talk too much about it. But Donovan Mitchell, he's rumored to go somewhere. I mean, there's a bunch of teams: Wizards, Heat, Raptors, Hornets, Kings, Knicks. Obviously, the top two, I think, are the Heat and Knicks, especially the Knicks being the number one team that is linked to him. But again, a lot is going to be asked for him. A lot. I mean, you already see what the asking price for KD is. You hear it's 8 first-round picks for Donovan Mitchell. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think he'll end up to play this season? And do you think it will be 8 first-round picks? So let's start with Shane. Where do you think he'll end up?
My head tells me it's going to be the Knicks because they just seem like the team that's going to be the one that finally just relents and says, all right, fine, we'll give you what you want. Like, I think that's what's going to ultimately happen. I'd love to see him in Miami, personally. But I don't know if they're willing, able, or even should give them what they probably should be getting back for Mitchell at this point. I don't even really want to think about what a trade like that would look like at this point. So I think I'm definitely going to go with the Knicks at this point as the most likely team to actually trade for him if he doesn't stay in Utah.
Tim, a Heat fan, right? Your team is one of the two guys, right? It's KD. I see a lot of Heat fans. KD or Mitchell, get one of them. What are you thinking with Mitchell, though? Do you think he fits? Do you think he'll be there? Where do you think he'll end up if it's not Miami? What do you think?
If the trade is, Hero, Robinson, one of the young minimum guys that really shined last year, and whatever draft pick they want, then yeah, he fits because you just put him into the Tyler Hero role.
Yeah.
You can hide him on defense. Kyle Lowry and Jimmy are the distributors. Bam makes everyone better with his screening and his defense, and he's allegedly adding a jump shot, which he's been doing for 3 years.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
But the Heat just don't have what it takes if Utah's going to really, really, really dig in with this.
That's
obviously, is it going to be 8? Hell no, it's going to be half that. But
yeah,
the Heat don't have it. They just don't.
No, they don't.
They put so many protections on the 2015 trade for Goran Dragic that they just finished paying it out. I believe it was last season.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, the 2021 draft was the last pick, and it had been traded like 19 times already from the Goran Dragic trade at the deadline in 2015. So, and they gave up more future picks for other things too. They just don't have what it takes pick-wise. It's all going to depend on how much do the Jazz value Tyler Hero, and apparently it's not that much. I know the Knicks aren't going to give up RJ Barrett. This is going to be a trade centered around, Emmanuel Quickly, contracts, and draft picks. And if the Knicks want to go give up 5 picks and Emmanuel Quickly and, one of their rotation players to make the contract work for Donovan Mitchell, then go ahead. And if they want to, on top of that, then flip Julius Randle for Russell Westbrook, go ahead. They can have all the small, inefficient guards who don't play defense that they want. Right. And you can have Jalen Brunson, Russell Westbrook, and Donovan Mitchell, and you can win 40 games.
I mean, here's what I'll say about it. I think the most likely spot is New York. I've heard that the issue with New York and them right now, it's not the picks. New York has no issue giving up the picks.
Oh, yeah, they'll give them the picks.
They're looking at the Gobert trade, right? And what did they get back player-wise? They got Walker Kessler, who was a 22nd world pick, and Pat Bev, right? So that I've heard is the big thing with the Knicks is they don't want to give up quality players, or maybe not as many quality players as the Jazz are asking, but the picks are not the issue. I think it makes sense for him to go to the Knicks. He wants to go there. I know. I mean, I'm pretty sure he said it a couple times he wants to go there, and it makes the Knicks better no matter what. If they give up quickly and picks and another guy, like I don't know who else you can name, but anybody, even if it's Randall, it still makes them better because Julius Randle, let's be honest, one of the most overpaid players in the NBA. But the NBA is better when the Knicks have a superstar,
Mhm.
when they're good. And now if you get Donovan Mitchell, you got Brunson, that's your backcourt. It might, again, like you said, not be the best defensive backcourt ever.
Barbecue chicken.
Yeah.
But you got Barrett. You play him maybe at the 3. It'd be a very small lineup, but boy, would they be able to score. So for me, Knicks make the most sense. I hope they make it happen because the NBA is better when the Knicks are at least have a superstar on their team, right? When Melo was there, the Knicks were. It was better. It's the way I look at it. I
It was
think a lot of
fun.
people look
Yeah,
at
it was fun.
So, we'll see what happens. I know the Kings just recently joined the mix too.
Who knows what the Kings are doing, man? Like,
it'd
I
be
don't even
interesting.
know.
Keegan Murray, Summer League MVP. You got Fox, you got Sabonis. If they can make that, pull it off somehow, who knows? The Raptors, I think, is a very realistic possibility.
I think they'd be a great fit.
Yeah,
if you give up a guy,
fun.
maybe, I don't know, like Siakam, maybe, getting a little older.
Yeah.
Throw some picks in
I
there.
think that would probably be centered around Anunoby, right?
That's what I would think.
Yeah. Well, you maybe Anunoby, some picks.
And probably Gary Trent. Gary Trent's probably got to be in that deal. He's 22.
I feel like, because you get then another scorer back if you're the Jazz that can actually help.
And
you
both
stay
of them are
relevant.
what? I think Trent's 22 and Anunoby's 23, or they're both.
Something
young.
along.
Anunoby might be
young.
a little bit older. He might be 24.
They're both young players, but either way, I think the Knicks make the most sense. The Hornets, they're rumored, but let's be real, Hornets aren't making done. MJ just doesn't know how to run a team.
You guys want to hear a potential Knicks starting lineup?
Oh God!
For defensive-minded head coach Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell, R.J. Barrett, Obi Toppin, and Mitchell Robinson.
Wow, that's really asking Mitchell Rob to do a whole lot.
Oh, there's a comment we got here from Matt. If the Knicks don't make a move, I'm officially done. Hey,
if this is
they
your
did make a move
moment,
though. They made
this is your
trust me, they made plenty of moves, but are they the right ones? That's the key word. It's not just they need to make a right move. I'm sorry, but they gave up. Who knows? I can't even think off the top of my head.
Jalen Brunson.
They tampered for him.
They're going to lose a draft pick for Jalen Brunson.
But yeah, Matt, if that's your done moment, man, I don't know what really to tell you.
You're a stronger man than me because I would have been gone years ago. Look, I'm tearing my hair out because the Heat haven't added a player. I couldn't imagine being a Knicks fan.
God, I can't complain. I don't care. Good, you should be. I'm not saying you shouldn't be, but
this sounds like Matt is cosplaying as Stephen A. Smith.
I'm done.
Either way, Donovan Mitchell, I don't think he starts the season in a Jazz uniform.
I don't think he should.
If he's on the Jazz roster, I don't think he plays, if I'm being honest. Look, we'll see what happens. Supposedly, within the next month or so, they should probably have a deal done, and we'll definitely talk about it in here. But the last thing we want to talk about, real quick, we've been running through a lot of things, taking up a lot of time, but we're going to run through it. Is the Summer League just happened, right? I already said Keegan Murray, Summer League MVP. Instead of going through a bunch of players, let's just each pick one player that you really keep an eye on, that you really, caught your eye. Who's that one player that really caught your eye? Let's start with Tim. Who do you think?
For me, it's Rockets, Tari Eason. I think it was the Magic game, and Jabari Smith's like, oh, I'm going to guard Paolo. And Tari Eason just told him, go away. He's mine. He's a great defender. And I think if his jump shot can continue to get a little bit better, he'd be a great player to play off of Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. You take him, and if he's a threat from the three-point line, we know Jabari Smith's a threat from the three-point line. Plus, Jabari Smith is also an elite defender. That is going to be a hell of an uncomfortable lineup to deal with for any team, any of the 29 teams. Now, they're not going to be very good because they're all, children. But that is a force to be reckoned with if he can continue to get that three-point shot up to go with that defensive intensity.
Yeah, he averaged 17, 10, 2 steals and a block a game. That's amazing. That was one guy to definitely keep an eye on. He'll be fighting, though, for those minutes. He'll be fighting. They got Sengun there that they drafted last year, so who knows what can happen. But, yeah, really impressive guy. Shane, who do you got for your guy that stood out to you?
This is kind of cheating a little bit just because I feel like this guy is kind of to a point where, like, he should be dominating in the summer league just because of the type of player he is and why he was drafted, where he was drafted. But Moses Moody for the Warriors had some monster games, and I'm hoping that leads to him having a chance to have more of a role on this team because they lost a couple guys that were rotation players that they're going to need to replace. And I think he might be in line to take some of those minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I was big on him coming out of last year. I was really big on him. I know, obviously, that he didn't exactly go into a position where he can play a lot of minutes right away.
Right.
But this year he'll definitely. I mean, that team they're gonna be fighting for minutes. It's not exactly like an Eason situation where Eason, he's gonna be fighting for minutes, but not to the extent where Moody is gonna be fighting.
Right.
Like,
The alternative for Eason is like 25 minutes. For Moses Moody, the alternative is getting called up at 6 a.m. and them saying, "Hey, you're going to Santa Cruz because we just don't have a roster spot for you right now."
That's the problem with him, right? But like I would really like to see him get at least rotation-ish minutes for them, just so that way they can see what they have in him this year.
They should put Klay Thompson on a maintenance program.
Yeah, like give whatever Clay should normally be getting minutes wise, just give the minutes he doesn't play to Moody so he can sit on the bench a little bit, play like 24 minutes a game during the regular season. Like that's honestly probably the best
guy
thing
went
for him.
Achilles ACL back to back. I don't need to see Klay Thompson playing 37 minutes.
No,
until it's May and June.
Right. Yeah.
The one guy though I want to talk about is an undrafted free agent.
Okay.
Now,
I think I might know who this is.
The only reason that I'm going to talk about this guy is because of the team he's on, and the reason that I think he could have a chance to play a little bit is because of the team he's on and his skill set. It's Cole Swinder.
Ooh, okay.
Lakers undrafted free agent. This man shot 50% from three during summer league. And if there's anything in this world that LeBron James loves, it is shooters. And that is exactly all this guy is. I mean, he averaged 15, 4 and 1. Obviously he's not going to do much more than just put the ball in the bucket, but he's the only player to make multiple threes each summer league game. If he can do that, he will be fighting for a spot on that roster because everybody knows they don't exactly have they don't exactly have the best roster in the world.
LeBron's their best shooter by like a mile too. It's like not even close.
Yeah, so that's the one guy I think maybe to watch out for. Cole Swinder, undrafted free agent. 50%. I mean, it's the thing. That's the one thing, and especially nowadays, you need shooters. You need those shooters, and if he can do that, even at 35%, it'll be better than 90% of the Lakers shooting from three. If he can shoot 35%,
they'll take it.
So Lakers scouting staff did it again.
Yeah,
because Scottie Pippen Jr. had some games in the summer league too.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of great performances. I mean, obviously Keegan Murray, MVP of the summer league. Benedict Mathurin showed why the Pacers should have picked him. Kenneth Lofton Jr. bullied. I mean,
the 180-pound Chet Holmgren.
Yeah, you guys saw it. He bullied him, and he bullied multiple people. So maybe look out for him. Another undrafted guy that you might have thought I talked about. I have written down here, Tommy Kuhs, Magic. After they benched Paolo, because they were like, "Oh, Powell, we know you can do what you can do, right?" They averaged 17, 3 and 3 with 3 steals a game, by the way. 3 steals a game. So who knows? I mean, Branham in San Antonio looked good. There's a lot of guys looked good. Abagji in Cleveland. So it's definitely, a lot of good young talent coming in the league. I really do. I think there's people always say, the league sucks. Wait until LeBron James may have ruined the NBA for a little bit because of the fact that he was that good, but there is a lot of young talent coming through the door year after year. So those are some guys to watch out for. Obviously, we had our top picks that we love. I think we're going to wrap it up now, last segment there. So any last words, Tim and Shane?
It's too early to say I was wrong about Paolo being my third-rated player. But he did kind of just look like 2011 Carmelo Anthony in the summer league. So
I will second that.
Yeah, he's gonna be pretty good. I feel like that'll be my last word.
He'll be a great Laker one day.
Yeah, there you go.
Hopefully, we will have some news for you guys next week. Maybe a Donovan Mitchell trade, maybe KD trade, maybe. I mean, long shots, but we'll have some news for you guys next week. We'll hop on with everybody and see you guys next week. So see you.